Hey, Pretty Girl Club. Welcome back to the Decentering Men series. A lot of you guys have been leaving very interesting, really insightful comments under my videos. So I want to talk about some of the ways that men actually hit the wall. Because they have all this shit to say about women, like, oh, once you reach 30, you hit the wall, you look bad. No matter how many surgeries you get, you're still going to be ugly. Okay, well, let's start off by pulling up the definition of what the wall is. So, according to ChatGPT, the meaning is basically you've reached a limit. If you look on this screen, that's what it says. Okay, hitting the wall really means reaching a limit. So, a lot of men have already hit the wall based on how they were born. Think about it. Think about all the men who come from impoverished backgrounds. Maybe they come from a country where they didn't have a lot of economic opportunities. A lot of women value men for their money in terms of dating. And so if a man comes from a really poor background and maybe his parents unintentionally set him up for failure, that man was already born at the wall. He was born at the wall because think about it. If he is a young man who got kicked out of the house at 13, if he got kicked out of the house as a child and he had to learn how to survive on his own, if he's been living his life in survival mode, that man is not going to have the emotional intelligence to be in a healthy relationship either. So he has also hit the emotional wall. I find it interesting how a lot of men, they talk about hitting the wall for women and they're basing it just on looks. And you know what? That kind of makes sense because a lot of men are very shallow and they do base a woman's value solely on her looks. Which is why I tell you that if you are pretty privileged, I actually don't see a problem with pretty privileged women having high standards or being conceited, being arrogant, because she's pretty privileged. She's pretty. The men are admitting that they worship beauty. So if you admit that you worship beauty and put it on a pedestal, why are you mad when pretty women act like we're on a pedestal? But going back to hitting the wall, one of the ways that men hit the wall is being kicked out or being homeless before the age of 18. A lot of people don't talk about this, but men who are kicked out of the house early, or if they get kicked out in general, that's actually a form of attachment trauma. Usually a man who gets kicked out, he's going to feel rejected. He's been rejected by his own mother. He's been rejected by his own father. So that man is being put in an unsafe position. He has literally been kicked out onto the streets. If you are being kicked out at that point, that means that your own family member is so fed up with you that that family member does not care if you are homeless. So that's going to affect that man's attachment style. So that's a wall. You've hit the emotional wall when you were a teenager, or you hit the emotional wall when you were in your early 20s, because if a parent or a caregiver is saying you're on your own, guess what your nervous system does? It adapts to that. So a lot of men who have been kind of abandoned, you see that these men tend to carry on that pattern as they get older. So they have this avoidant attachment. I don't need anybody. Or maybe they have difficulty like depending on a partner. They have difficulty making friends. That man, he becomes socially anxious because he feels like, okay, if my own family members rejected me, if my own family members don't care about me, why should I believe that a woman would actually care about me? So how do you think that man is going to grow up to treat women? A lot of those men are the ones who pull away when things get too intimate. Those are the men who leave before they can be dumped. These are the men who downplay their feelings. They don't admit when they are actually into somebody. They don't admit when they have feelings for a woman. Okay, so you've already hit the wall, sir. That's an emotional wall that you've already hit. You're avoidantly attached. And then there's the other side of that where men who get kicked out early, they develop anxious attachment. So fear of abandonment. Have you ever had an ex-boyfriend stalk you? That's fear of abandonment. He won't allow you to leave him. So these are the men who they start stalking their exes. These are the men who they're hyper vigilant. So he's trying to control what you wear. He's trying to control what you post. That's anxious attachment. He's over texting you. He's over explaining everything. He feels panic whenever you guys get into an argument. These are the men who let women walk all over them as well. These are the men who they stay in a toxic relationship to avoid being alone. Have you ever been around a couple that's always arguing? I'm talking about violently arguing, throwing stuff, screaming, yelling, cussing each other out. posting bad stuff about each other on Facebook, but then they never leave. The man never leaves. Anxious attachment. So you're over here talking about women hitting the wall. Oh, you hit the wall because your boobs are sagging. I'd rather have saggy boobs than have an entire fucked up attachment system. Which one's worse? Having a bad attachment system and not being able to form a healthy relationship or have a healthy dynamic, or having boobs that don't sit up high on your chest? Like, come on, that's laughable. So men hitting the wall is way worse than what they try to say women hit the wall for. And the reason I say it's worse for men is because women have higher standards than men. A lot of men, they don't really care as much about the woman's personality. They say that they do, but they really don't. A lot of men are very shallow. A lot of men revolve their lives and their relationships around sex and sexual desirability. I want to make an episode too on how men are hypergamous. Oh, by the way, a lot of men who have been abandoned, or maybe they come from poor backgrounds, those men become hypergamous. They try to chase after the suburban girls. It's always the hood ninjas chasing after the suburban girls. It's always the trashy men chasing after the classy women. Why is that? Well, that's a form of hypergamy. Men are hypergamous. He wants a woman who comes from a higher level background than him. He wants a woman who comes from a higher status background than him. That's still a form of hypergamy. It may not be mainstream hypergamy, but that's still hypergamy nonetheless. Hypergamy is when you're seeking somebody of equal or higher social status or financial status than yourself. So a woman who comes from maybe a wealthier background, or maybe she comes from a two-parent home, maybe her parents stayed married or whatever, that's still a form of social status, because we know how much men pedestalize women who come from two-parent homes. Okay, so you're hypergamous, sir. You're talking about women hit the wall. You were born at the wall, and so in order to make up for that, you're using hypergamy to make up for your own shortcomings, just like how you say women do. So that's why I say that a lot of their content is really just projection, but that's one of the ways that a man hits the wall. Number 2 way that a man hits the wall, or he's born at the wall, is by not having a father figure. So they talk so much shit about women who come from single mothers, and then they'll be like, oh, her mother was a 304, her mother was a hoe, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, well then what about the men who come from those same mothers? What do you think that man is going to grow up to attract? What do you think that man is going to normalize? If his mom had a bunch of baby daddies, or maybe she always had men coming in and out of the house, what do you think that man is going to grow up being attracted to? And by the way, I've just noticed that a lot of men tend to be bad at balancing things out. So what they'll do is they either want a twin of their mother, or they want to go for the exact opposite of their mother. So that's why you see the hood boogers chasing after suburban women. Why? Well, it's because his mom was a hood booger. He wants anything that is the opposite of his mom. He doesn't want any type of woman who reminds him of his mom. Colorism is another good example of this. You see some women saying, oh, well, why is it that he's dark-skinned and doesn't like dark-skinned black women? Well, he doesn't like his dark-skinned black mother. So psychologically, he's got trauma with the dark-skinned black female community. And I'm not invalidating people's traumas. I think if somebody has their own preference, that's fine. But I have noticed that that's why some people have that preference. It's not that they're running towards exoticals. It's not that they're running towards us. It's that they're running away from their own traumatic background. So that's a form of hypergamy. It's racial hypergamy. It's a form of skin tone hypergamy. It's a form of social hypergamy. They want someone that doesn't have the same social status or background as their family. They don't like their own family background. That's why you see a lot of people from the hood, they don't want to marry somebody from the hood. Has anybody else noticed that? Why is it that whenever somebody's from the ghetto, they never want somebody who's also from the ghetto? Why? Well, it's because they're hypergamous. They're socially hypergamous. They want someone who comes from a better background than themselves. They don't like the background that they came from. So when they have the choice to be in a relationship, they don't want to choose someone from that background because they view that background as being at the bottom, or, just not being high status. Okay, so that's another way that men hit the wall. Being born in poverty. That's a form of you being at the wall. Think about this. If somebody is born in a poor city, and don't even get me started on if his entire country is poor, that's a totally different level. That's even worse. So imagine the difference between American ghettos versus your entire country is ghetto. Your entire country, your entire economic system, everything about your entire country has collapsed. That's a totally different level of trauma. I mean, talk about survival mode. Think about the men who come from countries where you can't call 911. 911 doesn't exist. There is no ambulance. You can't go to the hospital. There is no health care. You're going to have to get your medical care at home, or you have to get your medical care in a hut or something like that. People who come from these backgrounds where maybe it's like extremely poor and everybody's in survival mode, do you really think that those men have the emotional capacity to be a protector and provider and have a healthy relationship with a woman? No matter what kind of relationship he wants, do you really think he's going to be capable of that? Absolutely not. So that's another way that men hit the wall. It's by living in survival mode, growing up in survival mode. And I think it's way worse for men because women can have this background as well, but it's never as bad for women because people naturally want to protect women. Women will always have female privilege. We will always have more privilege than men when it comes to people wanting to protect us, people wanting to build communities with us. Women in general tend to be more valuable socially. A lot of men get very socially ostracized. So that's why I say that the man is actually the one who hits the wall because female loneliness will never measure up to how lonely a man can feel. This is why you see more men unaliving themselves. It's because they experience a lot more isolation than what women do. So that's a form of being born at the wall. Sir, you don't like your own family. You don't like your own background. Maybe you don't like your own socioeconomic status. So you're trying to be hypergamous when you're dating. You want to date a woman from the opposite background. You want to date a woman with opposite social status. The men who went to public schools, they want to date the girls who went to private schools. The men who were raised by a single mother, they want to date the girls who were raised by a mother and a father. So do you see what I mean about how that's a form of men hitting the wall? That's why he's being hypergamous. He has to go 50-50. He can't afford to achieve his dreams on his own. He doesn't have the follow through to do that. He doesn't want to save up for 10 years for buying a house. He'd rather just get you to marry him and then you just go halves on the down payment. It's easier. You're the shortcut. As the woman, you're the shortcut for his success. You're the shortcut for his status. So people saying that women hit the wall is actually hilarious because men hit the wall in so many more ways than women. They hit not just physical walls, but emotional walls. Also, I would argue that plastic surgeries and facelifts and all that, getting a boob job and all that, liposuction for women, is that not a solution to the problem of aging? So if you really want to make that argument that women are aging badly, okay, well, that's why there's a multi-billion-dollar anti-aging system that is supporting women. We have entire systems in place to solve our problems. Really, aging is not even a problem anyway, but it's like if a woman really wanted to look better when she was older, she really could. For men, how are you going to solve the fact that you're not a millionaire? You can't just easily become a millionaire. You can't just erase who your parents are. So a lot of men have permanent problems. Women tend to have temporary problems. Oh, I got a wrinkle. Okay, you can reverse wrinkles. That's very easy to fix. Oh, I got a pimple. You can fix a pimple, but you can't fix coming from a generationally cursed or generationally impoverished background. You can't fix that. You can't change who your parents are. You can't change your DNA. You can't change your phenotype. Well, you can, but you would be shamed. Women actually can manipulate their phenotypes a lot more than men. That's another thing too. A lot of people, they talk about racial hypergamy or people who only want to go for somebody light-skinned or they only want to go for somebody white or whatever. Well, a lot of women, they manipulate their phenotypes. We have seen dark-skinned black women lightening their photos or wearing high yellow concealers and then lying about it and pretending that nobody wants to look light-skinned when in reality we know a lot of women do. So all of these problems that they're saying women are facing, oh, well, she hit the wall, she's fat. That's another easy thing that you can fix. You can just go to the gym. But you can't go to the gym and lift weights and become a billionaire tomorrow. And a lot of women, when they're choosing who they want to date, they're choosing men based on stability as well. So you can't fake economic stability. You can't really fake that long term. Women can buy fake hair. Women can dye their gray hair. Women can put on makeup to cover their wrinkles or whatever. But you can't really cover up where you come from. You can't cover up the emotional traumas that you faced due to being rejected as a child. And another thing too, when it comes to mental health, women, we tend to take care of our mental health more than men because there was a stat, I think it said something around like 75%, or like the majority of people in mental hospitals, the majority of people going to therapy are women. So a lot of men are also walking around undiagnosed. That's another way that you hit the wall. Having undiagnosed ADHD, autism, some form of neurodivergence, social anxiety. He's got bipolar and he doesn't know. He's got all of these different personality disorders and he's not getting help. He's not getting medicated for that. He went through the trauma of being rejected as a teenager, or, he's got mommy issues. He's got mother wounds, father wounds, and he never went to therapy, never went on a healing journey, never tried to do anything to overcome that pain. So you know the saying, hurt people hurt people? Well, who tends to get hurt more in our society? Men. It's men. They're the ones who are suffering the most. That's why they had to create the entire patriarchal system to attempt to protect themselves. It's because they knew that they would be more socially isolated. They knew that they would feel more lonely than the women. They know that they're not good at creating brotherhood or communities amongst other men. They know that other men tend to be violent against men and they tend to be competitive against men. So men are the ones who suffer way worse than women just in general in our society. So that's a form of being born at the wall right there. You're already at the wall for the rest of your life based on that talking point. You're telling me that your gender suffers the most in our society. You're the most isolated, the most mentally ill on average. You commit the most violent crimes on average. You've spent the most time in jail on average, dealing with other aggressive men on average. You deal with men competing with you on average. Don't even get me started on if it's a man who is like weak or scrawny, or maybe he's little, he's short, whatever. So you're going through bullying as well because of your physical stature. And you want to try to convince me that women are the ones who hit the wall? That's laughable. That's laughable. And that's why you see a lot of men who will still sleep with anything. A lot of men will still marry anything. Have you seen those videos where it's like the men who hate their wives? Okay, so that shows me that you had no standards then, because you're willing to marry somebody that you literally hate because that's how desperate you are to survive. But another way that men hit the wall is if he comes from a chaotic background. So let's say he grew up in a two-parent home, but maybe his parents, they were violent against each other. Maybe somebody was an addict or something. They're used to being in a household with like a bunch of yelling and stuff. That type of man, what type of partner do you think he's going to attract? He's going to be drawn to chaotic women. He's going to be drawn to chaotic partners because that feels familiar to him. And another thing too, have you ever seen those videos where men are like, a lot of women are cheating on men? No, you're attracted to cheaters. You are attracted to hoes. You're attracted to the women who are mentally ill. You know how they try to tell women, oh, you should have chose better. Okay, well, you should have chose better. Clearly, you are attracted to narcissistic women. You are attracted to bipolar women. You're attracted to ghetto women. You're attracted to ratchet women who slash your tires and they destroy your property and stuff. That's what you're attracting. So just like you say that women need to vet men, or, women need to choose better or get in better environments. Okay, well, you need to get in a better environment, sir, because it sounds like you're used to dealing with hood boogers. But another way that men hit the wall, number 2, is bad social strategies and bad dating strategies. So I've noticed that some of these YouTubers, I've seen some of the male YouTubers recently. There was this one guy, I can't remember his name, but he was talking about how to get a girlfriend. And then like some of his advice was, just make sure that you only talk to the women who approach you first. Make sure that you're only talking to women who message you first on the dating app. Okay, that's you're teaching the men to attract anxiously attached women. Those are actually the women who are more likely to cheat. Those are the women who are more likely to be mentally unstable. So they don't realize that by not understanding psychology and sociology, they're actually leading more men into the abyss. We'll only go after the women who chases you. Well, is that really what you want, sir? The type of woman who just chases after a bunch of men? Is that really what you want? Because it sounds like you guys get mad when those same women cheat on you later on. So it's like, which one is it? Do you want a woman that's wholesome and doesn't chase after a bunch of men? Or do you want the type of woman who messages a whole bunch of men first on dating apps? Because think about the psychology of that type of woman. The type of woman who walks up to a bunch of men in the bar. Oh, hey, what's your name? Oh, can I get your number, sir? The type of woman who catcalls men. the type of woman who's constantly following and basically simping for a bunch of men. Is that really what you're leading these men into dating? So that's a bad social climbing strategy. It's a bad dating strategy, and that's why they're getting cheated on, by the way. It's because they're attracting the women who chase after a bunch of men. Like that Myron guy, where he was with the girl and then the girl like cheated on him or something, or she left him for a Hispanic dude or whatever. Okay, well, part of their strategy is, oh, get the woman who really, really is just desperate for a man. Get the woman who's super desperate. Get the woman who just wants a man really, really badly. And it's like, okay, you don't understand that if she just wants a man, that makes you replaceable, sir. That means that she just wants any man. She's just desperate for any male attention. She's addicted to any type of male attention to the point where she's willing to chase it down herself. She's willing to message the guys. She's sliding into the men's DMs. She's following men down the street. She's stalking the men and trying to figure out where they're working so she can show up at their jobs. That's a stalking type of woman. That's an anxiously attached, mentally unstable type of woman. So that's another reason that men hit the wall. Because they're listening to these pickup artists who are basically giving them bad advice. And by the way, what happened to men being leaders? I thought men were supposed to be good at leading themselves, right? So why do they even have to watch all of these pickup artists online saying, oh, well, you have to have game. Oh, well, you got to know how to talk to her. Oh, you have to know how to have a sense of humor and make her like your personality. Well, sir, I thought that you are supposed to be the alpha male. So why are you listening to these other guys? So which one are you? Are you the beta male? Are these pickup artists the alpha males and then all of their subscribers are the beta males? Do you see all of the confusion and chaos? That's number 3. He's used to chaos. He comes from a chaotic background. He comes from a family or a community where it's literally just the blind leading the blind. So instead of him privilege stacking, he's actually trauma stacking. A lot of men are very good at trauma stacking, I've noticed. They're very good at trauma stacking. So one of their little dating things is they will tell men, oh, we'll just go up and cold approach. Just try to hit on 100 women. Just walk down the street and try to hit on 100 different women, and then that's going to help you to get a girlfriend. No, it's not. It's going to help you to look creepy, especially if you're unattractive. And they'll be like, oh, just approach women at the gym. Oh, just try to go to the bar and approach as many women as possible. Okay, what about the men who want the women who don't even drink? See, that's another problem. You're basically telling men that the only opportunity they have to meet someone is in a drunken setting. That's the only time you're going to find a girl is when she's cross-faded. Is that really the type of man that you're looking up to, sir? So you're attracted to these alpha male guys. They can only get a woman who's cross-faded. She's not even sober. She can't even consent. And you know what? That's exactly the lifestyle they're attracting. They're listening to these Diddy type of men. They're listening to these types of guys that are really doing high-level prostitution. That's really what they're doing. They're running prostitution rings, or they have to pay women to be in their presence. Oh, by the way, another way that men hit the wall is by being incels at every socioeconomic status. And the E-files confirm that. The Schmepstein files confirms that. You could be the richest man in the world. You could be one of the most high-status men in the world, and you still can't get a woman to hang out with you for free. You still can't get a woman to actually want to be around you. You still have to pay for her to even tolerate you. You still have to pay, and then you have to go to this island where you're taking women's V cards or you're doing sexual things to these women without their consent. Okay, so that's proof that you were already at the wall, and you're still at the wall even if you have billions of dollars. And I see a lot of men, they also talk about genuine attraction, like, oh, well, I want my woman to be genuinely physically attracted to me. Okay, so that's not going to happen if you're unattractive, sir. So that's another way that men hit the wall, is by simply not being attractive. Fucked up jawlines, fucked up hairlines, yellow teeth, bow-legged, hunchback of Notre Dame, beer bellies, ashy knees, ashy elbows, crusty faces, lips are crusty, chapped lips. So you're over here obsessing over, oh, I want the woman to be genuinely attracted to me. Okay, well, are you even attractive, sir? Because in a lot of cases, you're not. According to what most women's standards are, a lot of men are actually not very attractive. So that's another way that men hit the wall, is by being born unattractive. And then also being male, it's not acceptable within the male community to like have beauty enhancements. Like I notice men make fun of other men for like having a toupee or for like, I don't know, trying to build their muscles or whatever. I guess they have not steroids, but it's like they have these other injections and stuff that men do so they can like build muscle. Okay, so you can't enhance how you look then. You are limited in terms of your enhancements. Okay, so you're at the wall, sir. You're way more at the wall than an ugly woman. Because an ugly woman can put on some makeup, she can get a nose job, she can get her lips filled. And I'm not promoting that, but I'm just saying some women do that. And men will still put those women on the pedestal. That's another thing that keeps men at the wall. Hypocrisy. They talk shit about women who get surgeries or, women who have BBLs and stuff. Meanwhile, those same men are jacking off to those women on corn. Talking all that shit. Oh, well, she's not really pretty. She got lip fillers. She got a nose job. Well, she's wearing makeup. Meanwhile, they're going to the strip club so they can watch women who are wearing makeup. Their celebrity crush is an actress who wears makeup. Talking all that shit about weaves and wigs, but then they have a crush on somebody who wears weaves and wigs. So that's another thing that keeps men at the wall. It's their extreme hypocrisy. Number 5, codependency. If you look at a lot of the homeless men on the street, a lot of those men are homeless because some woman kicked him out of her house. Usually men in general who are like not leveled up, they tend to live off of women. He's living off of his mom or his sister or his grandma, his auntie, his girlfriend, or he's getting a girlfriend so he can live with her. So all of that is a form of codependency. Codependency makes you desperate. And that's why men want women more than women want men. Men are more desperate. That's why. They're more desperate than women. That's why you see a lot of men who have no standards. A woman having standards, that's proof that you're not actually desperate. Because you're willing to decenter all of the men who don't meet your standards. Men are not the same way. A lot of men are way more desperate for female attention. They're way more desperate for the breadcrumbs. That's why on that last episode, you literally had a man bragging. He's like, oh, I get all the bitches. Simply because a woman said hi to him, he gets all the bitches. Do you see what I mean? They're chasing after breadcrumbs. Okay, so that's desperation. That's desperation, sir. So you hit the wall because you're the one who's the most desperate. Whoever's the most desperate obviously is at a disadvantage. Okay, I think I'm on number 6, bad personalities. So what I've noticed is a lot of men who look good. So these are men who are the attractive ones. These are the guys who maybe they work out, maybe he's got a nice face or whatever. Even these guys can't pull an attractive woman to commit to him. And part of it is because of his bad personality. So if you go look up these looks matching I didn't even know that looks matching was like a legit thing. I had only heard of it on Reddit. And I thought it was just like pretty privilege or whatever. But apparently there's an entire community of men where they call themselves looks maxers. So these are men who are like, they're trying to look good for the female gaze. But then when you see these men cold approaching women, sometimes that man's personality is so bad that the women are still rejecting him harshly. These men are still getting rejected all the time. Because women in general are just not as desperate for male attention. And also women, we're not as easily moved by lust as men are. I would say usually if a woman is leveled up and emotionally stable, she's not going to be so hot in the pants like how men are. I feel like a lot of men, they feel like looks will solve all of their problems because they think that women operate based on lust. No, that's men who tend to operate based on lust. And that's why you see a lot of pretty girls who are crazy who are still attracting a lot of men. It's men who are the most desperate ones to have a pretty partner. Women are not really the same way. We're not as simple-minded. So no, having the looks, that also doesn't solve all of your problems. So that's another way that men hit the wall. No matter how he looks, if he has a terrible personality, he's still going to face a lot of rejection from women. He's still going to have women being repulsed by him. Women are still going to get turned off. I actually get turned off. If a man has a bad personality, I'm turned off. I don't like him anymore. Okay, I think I'm on number 6, baby daddy culture. So many people talk about women being baby mamas. Okay, well, what about the fathers of those same children? So just like how we have millions of baby mamas in America, there are also millions of baby daddies. So that's another form of hitting the wall. His decisions, his decision making ability caused him to quote unquote hit the wall. If having a baby outside of wedlock is hitting the wall, then a lot of men hit the wall too, then. They hit the wall just as much as the women they're talking shit about. And by the way, I will say there are disadvantages to dating a man who has kids because, for example, every other weekend, those kids are going to be there with him. So now you guys can't travel as much. You have to like rearrange your schedule. And don't even get me started on if he has a bad co parenting relationship with the baby mama. So that's another thing. Why is it that men with kids are always chasing after child free women? Hypergamy, that's why. He wants status hypergamy. Child free women tend to have higher freedom, higher status, more extra money. You know, we can just travel and do more stuff versus women who do have kids. On average, women do have to work harder when they have kids. You know, they have to like get babysitters and stuff like that. And if you don't have any kids, you're considered to have a higher quality of life or a life that's more convenient. I know that that's not necessarily the case, but a lot of men can be very simple minded. And so that's how they stereotype people. So that's why they're chasing after the women with no kids. It's like, okay, wait a minute. So you wanted to create a baby mama, but you don't want to date a baby mama. Do you see the extreme hypocrisy there? So we have men who maybe he has one or several baby mamas, but then he's talking down on women who have one or several baby daddies. But that's another way that he hit the wall. He's the one that would be introducing a woman to baby mama drama. Some women, that's just not their preference. Some women prefer to not be with a man with kids if she doesn't have kids. So isn't it interesting how men get to have as many preferences as they want? Big booty, long curly hair, be white, you know, whatever their little preferences are. But then as soon as a woman says, oh, you know what, I'm child free, I don't have any kids, I prefer to date a man with no kids, then suddenly you're stuck up. You're being judgmental. You need to just give him a chance. You don't understand what he's been through. And that leads me to my next point, which is men who have been defined by their traumas. So you know how I said a lot of men are really good at trauma stacking? So they stack all these traumas. They never process those emotions that came from those traumas. And then they expect you to just accept the fact that he's been defined by his trauma. Okay, so you're admitting that basically you're a failure. You're admitting that you're a loser. Why would I tie my life to someone who admits that his existence sucks? Sir, you just admitted to me that your life is basically a living hell. You just admitted to me that you've been living in the abyss for the past 40 years, and then you expect me to want you now? Why would I volunteer for a living hell? Why would I volunteer to lower my status or lower my quality of life just so I could be attached to you? So do you see that bad social climbing strategy? It's a bad dating strategy. Men who have a victim complex, they have an inferiority complex, and then you have to deal with it. So these are the men who end up attracting women to be their therapists. A lot of men, they don't want a girlfriend. They want a therapist. They want someone to listen to them. That's what a therapist does. You pay that therapist to listen to you. But let's get into what the physical wall is for men. Balding, weight gain, spending years neglecting your teeth. A lot of men, they don't take care of their teeth. A lot of men never go to the dentist. A lot of men don't brush their teeth for a long time. So once that man hits 40, 50 years old, that's when those teeth start falling out. That's when he's got to get those dentures. And most men, they don't have the money to take care of like their dental bills and stuff. So all of that self-neglect starts showing in his 40s. If this man has spent his life being neglected by other people, what makes you believe that suddenly he's not going to neglect himself? No, that's not how society works. Generally speaking, humans tend to follow the patterns that they're most familiar with. So if he's already been neglected, if he's used to being in dusty environments, why is he going to look like a supermodel in his 40s? He's not. Most men don't have a social life to look forward to. Most men they're not visible. A lot of men are invisible. So by the time that invisible man reaches his 40s and 50s, he has spent decades neglecting himself. So he looks even worse. So when he was in his early 20s, maybe he was like a 4 out of 10. Now in his 50s, he's a 2 out of 10. Men neglect themselves physically way more than women do. And I think this is a part of why the men tried to create this looks maxing community. but they don't understand that they will most likely never meet women's standards for the most part. Because a lot of women, you can't just have the looks either. We want it all as women. And I have no problem admitting that. I have no problem saying that. My standards are high. I do want it all. Why wouldn't I? Everybody wants it all, right? If you have the option to go for someone who you're attracted to, somebody who's nice to you, they don't have any baggage, of course you're going to go for that. So a lot of men, they end up hyper focusing on solving one problem, like, oh, let me just get money, or oh, let me just get looks. And they don't realize that it's still not going to be enough because the average woman has way higher standards than the average man. And so a lot of men get mad because they're like, wait a minute, I would have settled for a woman who looked good and had nothing else to offer. So why can't you settle for a man who just looks good and has nothing else to offer? Well, it's because we don't want Pookies and Ray Rays. That's why. We don't care that you're Tyrone. We don't care about you looking like a Chad or whatever they're calling it, or Chad Riguez or Chad Rico. We don't care that you're a Chato Rican. Every woman is not shallow and one-dimensional. That's another thing. On average, women tend to be more multidimensional and multifaceted versus men. A lot of men are very one-dimensional. So they make this argument, oh, I have money, so you should like me now. Oh, well, I'm tall, so you should like me now. Oh, well, I have a nice body. I have muscles, so you should like me now. It's like, sir, your face still looks crazy. What do you mean I should like you because you have muscles? Have you ever seen a creepy guy at the gym where it's like he has all these muscles, but he has the creepiest looking face? And it's like, sir, you wrongly stereotyped women, and it's almost like they feel like women are a vending machine. Oh, if I just put this quarter in the vending machine, then she'll love me. Oh, if I just get some muscles, then she'll love me. If I just get a nice job, then she'll love me. And it's like, sir, who are you doing all this performance for? Who is she? What's her name? Whose attention are you trying to attract? Who is she? What is her name? And I guarantee you he won't be able to answer. So that's why you see a lot of men who are just kind of running on this hamster wheel. And then they develop rage. Well, yeah, I would be enraged too. If I was a man dealing with a whole bunch of men and just listening to a whole bunch of men, always around a whole bunch of men for my entire life, I would be enraged as well. Living in a patriarchal society created by men, being dominated and subjugated by other men, never having a sense of community with men, yeah, I would be really mad as well. Having a bad relationship with my own father, no male role models, bad relationship with my own brothers. I mean, think about the men who have brothers. A lot of men don't even get along with their brothers. A lot of men compete with their own brothers, fight with their own brothers, get into fistfights with their brothers. They'll have an entire beef with their brother. They'll have an entire beef with their dead father who passed away years ago. Still beefing with the man who is deceased. That's trauma stacking. Trauma stacking and not dealing with those emotions, not releasing those emotions or learning how to regulate your nervous system, that's what causes rage. Rage is a dysregulated nervous system. If a person is enraged, that means that they have such a big external locus of control. You allowed other people to control your emotional state so much to the point where you became enraged. You're such a slave to your own emotions, and you're such a slave to other people's opinions, you're a slave to other people's reactions to you, you're a slave to what others think of you, so much so to the point where you're enraged because this person doesn't like you. You're enraged because this woman doesn't want to date you. That's a sign of a dysregulated nervous system. Most men are very bad at regulating their emotions. That's another way that they hit the wall. Because if you think about it, relationships are emotional. So you are over here talking shit and calling women emotional, but then you want to have an emotional relationship with a woman. Fuck out of here with the bullshit. So you want a romantic relationship, but you devalue emotions. Well, that's why you don't have a relationship. You don't know how to feel emotions. You don't know how to process emotions. You don't know how to express emotions. You don't know how to reciprocate emotions. So expecting a woman to emotionally bond with you, they do all this talk about pair bonding. Pair bonding is emotional bonding. And if you think about romantic relationship, that is a sexual, you're having sex and companionship. That's really what it is. It's a physical and emotional connection with a person. So you want to have an emotional connection with this woman, but you don't even understand emotions, sir. You don't know how to process your emotions. You don't know how to express emotion. You want her to say, I love you, but then you can't say, I love you to her. You want her to tell you you're hot and sexy and fine, but then you can't say that to her because, that's too vulnerable. And by the way, that's another reason why a lot of men, they attract emotionally avoidant women, or they attract women who don't express their emotions. It's like, well, yeah, because relationships a lot of times are kind of like a mirror. I mean, to be honest though, most men who are bad with emotions, they tend to never get into a relationship in the first place though. That's another thing that most men won't admit. A lot of men will go their entire teenage years, their entire 20s and 30s and 40s without having a serious girlfriend. And they don't admit that. It's like, okay, so you went 40 years and no girl ever wanted to be your girlfriend, and now you want to convince me that suddenly you're a freaking Casanova and you know everything about relationships? Suddenly you're fucking Romeo and you're an expert on relationships? That's laughable. Nobody is good at something on their first try. Nobody is an expert at something their first time. So that's another way that men tend to hit the wall romantically. It's due to lack of romantic experience. No woman has ever wanted to be romantic with him because he is not good at pursuing relationships. He's not good at pursuing, or maybe he's not good at securing relationships. He's not good at locking a woman down, for lack of better words. Okay, so have you ever been around certain groups of men where they're really bad at taking a woman from friend zone? I'm going to use black men as an example. I don't care. You can cry in my comment section. I'll block you, bitch. But a lot of black men, I've noticed, this is one of the things that they struggle with. A lot of them struggle with going from friend zone to boyfriend, girlfriend, to engagement, to marriage, to family. A lot of men I've noticed in like the black community, and same thing with poor communities as well. A lot of men in those communities, they don't know how to take you from friend zone all the way to being a girlfriend. They don't know how to do that. That's why a lot of them get stuck in the talking stage. They're stuck in the friends with benefits stage. They're stuck in the texting stage. He doesn't know how to progress something. He doesn't know how to finish what he starts, basically. A lot of men, they don't have the emotional availability to even attract a woman being romantically interested in him. That's why a lot of men are going decades without having a girlfriend. And you know what cracks me up? It cracks me up when I see male YouTubers and they'll be like, "Oh, just get a job. Just get a career, and then all the women are going to come running to you. Just build an empire, just start a business, just become wealthy, man. Just get some status and all the women will come running to you." First of all, we know that's false. The e-files prove that. That doesn't mean women are going to come running. No, they're going to come running for your money. They're going to come running to take something from you, but they're not coming because, "Oh, you're just such a wonderful man. Oh, you just have such a sparkling personality. That's why I'm here." No, all you're doing is really attracting transactional relationships. I mean, if that's what you want, that's fine, but I've noticed that a lot of the incel rage is really men who wanted a romantic relationship. So not a transactional one where they're sugar babying. That's a totally different thing, and that's not what I'm talking about in this video. But a lot of men are not good at progressing from the friend zone to relationship zone. They're not good at doing that because a lot of men are just not good communicators. By the way, that's my next one. Being a bad communicator. That's another way that a man hits the wall. As women, women are socialized to be communicators because we don't have the muscles. We're not big and strong like how a lot of men are. So we can't just beat people's asses or just bully people or throw our weight around like how men can. So as women, we have had to learn to communicate in order to survive. We have to learn how to be nice to people, how to be polite even if you don't like someone, how to use your words instead of using your fists or weapons. So for women, because we're the weaker sex physically, we have had no choice but to actually learn communication as a survival skill. But a lot of men didn't have to learn that. A lot of men just go out and beat people's asses, or they just carry weapons, or just him being big and tall is enough to intimidate people. So he never had to use his words because all the other men would submit to him. You know how men bow down and worship the tall guy. So a lot of tall guys, they're used to shorter men just bowing down and worshiping them. So they're not used to having to use their words to communicate. So that's why you still see a lot of tall men who are also incels as well, or they're very lonely. They hit the wall because he doesn't know how to use words. He only knows how to communicate with his fists. He only knows how to communicate through silence. That's another problem as well. Have you ever been around like an introverted man where he doesn't know how to use his words, so he gives the silent treatment, or he just doesn't tell how he feels. he's afraid of rejection, so he won't tell you, oh, I like you. I want to go on a date. I want to be more than friends, whatever. So, men's communication skills, that's another way that they hit the wall. And that's why you see these men who look smacks. They're over here trying to look like a supermodel. You know, this guy looks like a supermodel and is still an incel. He still has to pay to have sugar babies. So, I mean, that's a sign that the woman is not there for him. She's there for his money. And hey, get your money. I mean, but that's usually not what the guys are actually looking for. They're using that as a way to kind of distract themselves from their own loneliness. That's another thing as well. A lot of men escape through women. Women are their form of escape. So they escape by jacking off to women on porn. They escape by commenting under my YouTube videos. They escape by bashing women online, bullying women online. They escape by maybe texting a certain woman, maybe going on dating apps, maybe doing a fake profile on a dating app and trying to catfish a woman. That's another thing. A lot of men are actually catfishing women. Okay, so you hit the wall, sir, because you literally had to be a height fish. You had to catfish your height on a dating app to even get matches. You have to wear a hat in every photo. You have to wear big sunglasses or have a big giant beard in every photo to hide the fact that you have 5 chins. Okay, so you hit the wall, sir. But what do you ladies think? Let me know in the comments section, and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.